How exactly did Blackbeard get 2 Devil Fruit abilities, and why is there so much controversy surrounding what he really is? In this video, I'll tell you the real name of his Devil Fruit, why he's such a threat to the world government, and what role he will play in the next few arcs. But before we get into that, this vid took a lot of effort to make, so if you could like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Let's get into it. First, I'll explain what makes us question Blackbeard. It all starts on chapter 223, where Blackbeard makes his debut. He was sitting beside Luffy, and both of them were eating cherry pie and drinking rum. Keep in mind, right now we don't know this is Blackbeard. They get into a little bit of a squabble because they seem to disagree on everything. An important example of this is when they drank the rum and Luffy says he loves it, but simultaneously Blackbeard says he hates it. As Blackbeard is leaving the bar, we notice he still has an angry but banterous expression, while Luffy becomes more blank and somewhat serious. Shortly after, Bellamy walks in and smashes Luffy's head into the table, and as Luffy gets ready to fight back, Nami's question on how to get to the Sky Islands made the bar erupt with laughter. But something I noticed here was that Oda kept putting question mark bubbles above Luffy, and I'm not talking a couple times. It was the only thing Luffy expressed 5 times in a row. While this may have just seemed like questioning why everyone at the bar is so surprised, you'd expect him to talk back considering he doesn't like to be laughed at. But he looked really spaced out and didn't say a word. Bellamy goes on about the Sky Islands and the knock-up stream, but all of a sudden the question marks stop and turn into ellipses. But nothing Bellamy has talked about really changed. Then Luffy gets hit once again. Earlier, Zoro got mad when Luffy got his head smashed into the table, but this time he also had a question mark above him. And while everyone around them are laughing, Luffy stands up and says, "Zoro, do not fight them." We all remember this scene because it was confusing as hell, but we all thought it was about Bellamy. A minute ago, Luffy was ready to scrap, but now he wants to get his ass beat. I think the reason Luffy's face was blank and the reason he decided not to fight back was because he sensed something, and it's definitely about Blackbeard. Zoro begins to sense the same thing, and what Luffy meant at the end was not to fight Blackbeard. Now you might be thinking how, because Luffy said don't fight them, not him, but this will make a lot of sense in a little bit. To explain why they took the beating, I think Luffy sensed danger in Blackbeard's ability, so he decided not to fight back so that he wouldn't display his abilities to the monster he sensed. How he sensed it was probably through an early form of Haki and the voice of all things. You might be thinking how that applies to Blackbeard, but it's because of his Devil Fruit, which I'll get to later. That would also explain why Blackbeard said great comeback to Luffy in a completely different tone as they stare each other down later in the chapter. As they're leaving the bar all bruised up, they see Blackbeard sitting in the middle of the street, and he tells them the Sky Islands exist and that Luffy and Zoro won that fight in the bar. Luffy then has a flashback to Ace and Shanks. Blackbeard also compliments their comeback, and Luffy gives him this look. Nami asks Luffy, why not ask him how to get to Skypiea? And Luffy responds, well, it's not just one guy. Zoro adds on with, there's more than one, I think. Then we see a panel of Blackbeard drinking the same rum he hated earlier, saying, this grog tastes awfully good today. Now let me analyze everything that happened. As for why Luffy and Zoro kept questioning something and completely flipped everything they were about to do, it was because they either began to realize something about Blackbeard or they sensed something. Luffy and Zoro refer to Blackbeard as more than one person, which is another reason it's possible Luffy was also talking about Blackbeard when he said don't fight them. Luffy also gets a flashback of Ace and Shanks when looking at Blackbeard, and what connects them to him is how of course Ace is looking for him and Shanks' scar came from him. Once Luffy gets his new bounty of 100 million and news goes out he defeated Crocodile, Blackbeard tries to capture him but it's too late. Blackbeard then captures Ace instead and becomes a warlord, basically causing the entire Paramount War. He then invades Impel Down, and as he walks in he yells liberation and meets Luffy for the second time. Blackbeard just tells Luffy all that happened and that he will put on a show that will shake the world. Now I'll start with the meat of the theory. First, let's look at his teeth. Now we know that he's missing a few, but what if I told you that the missing teeth were never consistent? There were actually 3 different patterns. I'll put all 3 of them up. There was also this one time he had a full mouth of teeth, but that didn't stay consistent with the anime, so it's most likely just a mistake. Of course, Luffy and Zoro also said that he was more than one person. During Impel Down, Blackbeard told Luffy that his Haki got better, and we know that this is before the time skip. So wait, what Haki is Blackbeard referring to? We had a few instances of Haki use before Jaya, with Shanks using Conquerors on a sea monster and Zoro using what seemed like observation on Daz Bones. But Luffy never uses it until Conquerors and Amazon Lily, right? Well, what Blackbeard said might have confirmed that Luffy and Zoro sensed something was up with Blackbeard in Jaya with observation Haki. And of course, Luffy still didn't have control of it during Impel Down, but he might have been unconsciously using it, which can explain this. Okay, so now we know Blackbeard is multiple people, and we know he consistently has 3 different sets of teeth, so naturally we think he's 3 different people. More evidence backing this up is the fact he has 3 guns on his waist, 3 skulls on his Jolly Roger, 3 knots on his beard, and 3 marks on the scar that he gave to Shanks. So how does this explain how he has multiple Devil Fruit abilities? Well, it's because of the nature of his original Devil Fruit, which I believe is the Inu Inu no Mi, model Cerberus. In Greek mythology, a Cerberus is a 3-headed dog that guards the gates of hell. This fits well with the darkness powers and can somewhat explain why he can use the Gura Gura no Mi, and that would be because he has a limit of 3 Devil Fruits rather than 1. This next part is really important. Now we already saw zombie Cerberus in One Piece, and that was the beginning of Thriller Bark. Now when looking at arcs post and pre-time skip, you notice tons of parallels and tons of opposites. For example, Punk Hazard and Dressrosa were very similar to the full Alabasta saga, since it featured a warlord taking over a country with the Straw Hats helping the royal family gain back their country. But instead of traveling with the princess, they travel with the prince of another country. There was also involvement from the Marines in Smoker and Fujitora. Water 7 and NS Lobby are parallels to Whole Cake Island, since a crew member left and and fought Luffy in Usopp and Sanji. But while Usopp decided to join back on his own, Sanji's backstory was shown, he was saved, and then he wanted to join back, taking on the role of Robin and Usopp in that arc. And it also introduces a new level of power that they will go up against in Big Mom, who's a pirate, and CP9, who are Marines. Amazon Lily, Impel Down, and Marineford was similar to all three acts of Wano, since it's chill, then prison, then war. But Momo was saved and Ace wasn't. Anyways, you get it. Almost every large arc has a parallel with a few opposites, except Thriller Bark. I believe we're going to get an arc sometime soon where the Straw Hats fight two former warlords. Of course, they fought Moria and Kuma, who were warlords in Thriller Bark, but the warlords are abolished, so that's one opposite for the arc. In the beginning, they would encounter one of the former warlords, probably one they haven't encountered before, like the guy claiming to be Whitebeard's son. And of course, it would seem like a light-hearted arc just like Thriller Bark, but once we get to the end, Blackbeard will be another former warlord that shows up and overpowers the entire crew. The same way Sanji took on the role of Usopp and Robin, Blackbeard takes on the role of Kuma and the Cerberus, playing opposite and a parallel at the same time. But this arc is probably not coming anytime soon, and that's because of what he plans to do next. We know he's a member of the Will of D, and what everyone there has in common is that they're enemies of the gods, also known as the World Government and the Celestial Dragons. But he apparently attacked the Revolutionary Army during the Zhao arc. If anything, I don't see a single member of the D clan that we know, with the exception of Rox D Zebek, since we don't know anything about him, having opposing views to the Revolutionary. Funnily enough, every single Revolutionary escaped from Blackbeard and his crew, and they're seen without a scratch fighting a war in the Reverie a couple weeks later. If it's their nature to go against the gods, why did Blackbeard go against Monkey D Dragon, even though they have the same enemy? Does Blackbeard have his own plan to destroy the world government, or is he secretly working with Dragon?